Welcome to the Deep Dive. We're here to unpack ideas, explore realities that often go unseen, and, well, give a voice to stories that really need hearing. Today, we're jumping into something quite profound, a topic that feels like it's been kept in the shadows for way too long by, silence and certain forces. We're doing a deep dive into a really powerful, thought-provoking book. It's called Best Interest, The Sacred Role of Fathers in the Life of the Child, and it's by the I BaRaKa. Now, the author kicks things off with a really striking claim, saying, the world's quietest war is the war against fatherhood, and the casualties are our children. So our mission today is to really dig into what that means. We want to cut through what the book calls an engineered silence, shine a light on what it describes as the systematic removal of fathers, especially fathers of African descent, from families, from society. And it's really important we say this right at the start. This deep dive isn't positioned as like an attack on mothers. Not at all. The book actually frames it as a call for restoration, for education, and for kind of balance that, well, it argues the world desperately needs right now. So we're inviting you, our listener, to come with us on this mission. We're aiming to pull out the most vital insights from this, frankly, extraordinary work. It's designed to maybe shift your perspective a bit on family, on identity, maybe even on global well-being.
Yeah, and what's really compelling about the approach here, how the book tackles this, is just how interdisciplinary it is. The I BaRaKa doesn't, stick to just one lane. He weaves together concepts from quantum physics, which is fascinating in itself, alongside sharp psychological insights, really detailed legal analysis, and deep spiritual principles. The goal seems to be not just to say the father's role is sacred, but to build this really solid case for why it's essential, using knowledge from all these different fields.
Okay, so it's pulling from a lot of different places.
Exactly. And that means this deep dive, the one we're taking today, it's going to go beyond just, scratching the surface. It's really a journey. It challenges how we usually think about things, aiming to redefine what best interest actually means. It weaves this incredible historical tapestry, validates struggles that, as the book points out, so many people have faced, often alone. And ultimately, the aim is to empower individuals, whole communities, really, to heal and rebuild.
And the author themselves, what's their background?
Right, that's worth mentioning, too. The I BaRaKa is described as a legal and cultural scholar, holds degrees in law, but also mathematics and ICT information and communication technologies. And this isn't just like an academic exercise for him. He brings 27 years of dedicated research to it, plus his own firsthand experience as both a father and a son. That gives the insights this incredible depth, this authenticity. You can feel it.
27 years. Wow. Okay. So let's start unpacking that core message. The book opens with this really provocative statement about the quietest war. When we think war, it's usually something loud, visible, headlines, bombs. This is obviously different. What does the book really mean by that? How does this quiet war actually show up, maybe in ways we don't even realize?
It's a really powerful metaphor, isn't it? And yeah, unsettling. The book argues this quietest war is this pervasive, often invisible campaign against fatherhood itself. It points out that while legal systems, globally claim they're all about the best interest of the child, the author argues these same systems, often subtly but consistently, actually contribute to systematically removing fathers, or at least marginalizing them, pushing them to the edges. And the book specifically highlights this trend seems particularly pronounced when it comes to men of African descent.
How so? What does that look like?
Well, think about how society often portrays fathers of African descent, the stereotypes. They're frequently shown as, violent or absent deadbeats. That's a common trope. But the book points out they are rarely, and this is really crucial, rarely depicted as sacred or vital or essential to a child's well-being.
Right. That sacred aspect feels missing from the common narrative.
Completely.
Yeah.
And the book directly pushes back against that. It states quite clearly, most fathers have not been absent by choice. It says, many were broken, pushed out, misunderstood, or unequipped. Now, it does acknowledge that, yes, some fathers have made poor choices. Accountability is important. But it stresses accountability not just for the individual, but also for the systems that might contribute to that absence. That's a key distinction.
Okay. So it's not just about individual failings.
Not solely, no. And it also highlights this powerful counter-narrative of resilience. Many fathers have faced accountability, they've gained self-awareness, and they are actively rising again, reclaiming their roles. So when the book talks about this quietest war, it's talking about a conflict fought through distorted perceptions, through policies, through systemic designs that sideline a really critical family figure. It's framed as this urgent call for restoration, education, and getting back to some kind of balance in our communities. And again, it's very explicit. This is not meant as an attack on mothers. It's about restoring a balance
Okay, that framing is clear. Now let's talk about that phrase, best interest of the child.
Yeah.
It feels so fundamental, doesn't it? Like the bedrock of family law. But the book challenges it, says it's often applied, what, subjectively? Inconsistently. This is where it gets really interesting, I think. How does the author redefine something that seems so foundational?
Yeah, that's absolutely central to the book's argument. It really takes a critical look at that legal standard. It explains how, even though it sounds protective, the standard of best interest of the child has often been applied with, well, a lot of subjectivity and inconsistency, and that this subjectivity, this inconsistency, has directly led to fathers being marginalized. Often, the way it's interpreted legally boils down a child's best interest to just the basics: food, shelter, school, obvious needs.
The material stuff.
Right. But in doing that, it inadvertently overlooks these deeper requirements. The book points out that the standard itself rarely, if ever, explicitly defines the cultural needs or the spiritual needs or the identity-based needs a child has to actually know their father, to connect with that side of themselves.
That's a gap.
It's a huge gap. And the book argues this omission creates space for implicit biases to creep in, often defaulting to a kind of maternal preference that actually has roots in older colonial or patriarchal ideas about who does the caregiving.
So how does the book define it differently then? What's the true best interest, according to the author?
Well, in stark contrast to that often limited legal view, the author puts forward this really holistic, expansive definition. The true best interest, according to this book, isn't just about legal definitions. It explicitly includes the sacred, the energetic, the vital presence of the father. So that means acknowledging the biological side, because paternal presence actually shapes a child's neuroendocrine system. You know, how their body manages stress, mood, everything.
Wow, okay. Biological impact.
Definitely. Then there's the psychological necessity. The father often plays this unique role in shaping a child's identity, their confidence, how they model behavior. It includes the spiritual command connecting the child to ancestry, legacy, moral grounding, and of course the legal right, both the father's and the child's right to that relationship, which thankfully is getting more recognition in some places now. But the core argument is that modern law too often just reduces fatherhood to biology and, well, money. Economics.
Just the paycheck.
Exactly. And in doing so, it tragically ignores these profound emotional and spiritual needs that a father fulfills. It's a much bigger picture.
Okay. Before we dig even more into those modern issues, the book takes us back, way back. It paints this picture of fatherhood in ancient African civilizations that sounds worlds apart from the stereotypes we hear today. Tell us about that.
It really does. The book gives this incredibly rich, impactful history of African fatherhood, starting from what it calls its ancient sacred cosmic appointment in places like Kemet, ancient Egypt, but also Nubia, Indus Kush, Ethiopia. Fatherhood wasn't just seen as like a social job. It was considered a cosmic office, an alignment with universal law, with order, with spiritual legacy.
A cosmic office. That's a powerful way to put it.
Isn't it? The father wasn't just, a guy in the house. He was revered. As a priest, a protector, a provider, and a prophet, his presence was seen as essential. His absence, a massive disruption to identity, even a spiritual crisis for the child and the community.
Can you give some examples of how that looked in practice?
Sure, take Kemet. The father was often likened to Osiris, who represents legacy, law, rebirth. They had practices like the Dawn Sen, right? Father and son doing synchronized breath work together, which sounds simple, but it was seen as this profound way to reinforce discipline, unity, pass down ancestral continuity, transmitting masculine order energetically into the child.
Wow. Breathwork is the ancestral connection.
Yeah. Or in the Songhai Empire in West Africa, they had drum naming rites. The father ceremonially linking the child to their ancestral purpose through rhythm and name. Even looking at other traditions like the Maori and Aotearoa, they had day fathers or clan uncles involved in mentoring, ensuring this robust network of male guidance. The book uses these examples to argue there was this widespread ancient understanding that fatherhood transmits spiritual, cultural, emotional identity way beyond just biology.
It's fascinating how you mentioned quantum physics earlier and now this energetic transmission. Is there a link to modern science too?
Well, interestingly, yes, modern psychology kind of echoes these ancient ideas. Think about Dr. Edward Tronick's work on emotional development, co-regulation, that process where caregivers help kids manage their emotions.
Right, the still face experiment and all that.
Yeah. Exactly. That work highlights how crucial consistent caregiver presence is, especially early on. And the book argues, when a father is consistently present, the child's brain gets enriched behavioral models, a wider emotional vocabulary, better focus, better impulse control. This consistent presence, both physical and emotional, the book suggests, might actually influence how the child's body and brain function right down to the cellular level, highlighting this deep energetic impact.
That historical reverence is powerful to think about.
Mm.
But then the story takes a dark turn. The book details what it calls a systematic attack on this sacred role. The history sounds really brutal.
It is. It's confronting. The book gives a very vivid account of how this role was systematically dismantled, starting with the transatlantic slave trade. Slavery used these brutal legal tools like partus sequitur ventrum.
That phrase, what does it mean?
It's Latin, basically meaning offspring follows the womb. It was a legal principle used in colonial America, the Caribbean. It decreed that a child status, slave or free, followed the mother's status. This legally just nullified the father's lineage, his authority. It meant children of enslaved women were born into slavery regardless of the father. It stripped enslaved fathers of any legal claim, any protection over their own children.
Just erase them legally?
Completely. Plantation records even show how the father's authority was deliberately undermined. Children were often forced to look to the slave master, not their father, as the figure of power. Paternal guidance could even be punished. Imagine the psychological effect. Children learning their father is powerless, disposable, voiceless. Dr. Frances Cress Welsing, her work is cited, saying, slavery did not just steal labor, it stole the memory of the father from the child's blood. She called these psychogenetic scars passed down generations, still felt today.
Psychogenetic scars, that's heavy. And after slavery?
Well, then colonialism continued the process, especially across Africa and the Caribbean. Colonial powers actively dismantled traditional male leadership structures. They replaced customary laws, which often recognized different family structures like polygyny or communal child-rearing, replaced them with European models, like strict monogamy, enforced through missionaries, new colonial laws, undermining that collective responsibility fathers and elders had.
And economically, too.
Yes, things like forced labor, hut taxes. They forced men to leave their families for work, breaking up family units even more. Missionary schools replaced the father-led oral traditions, the storytelling, the history, replaced it with European curriculum, actively separating kids from their fathers, teaching loyalty to the colonizers, not their own patriarchs. There's a quote from Gego Wathiongo mentioned. The father was replaced by the foreign governor, the bishop, and eventually the paycheck. Really sums it up.
So slavery, colonialism, and this dismantling continued into more modern times.
Absolutely. The book argues it evolved into modern institutional forces. Take welfare policies, for instance, specifically the man-in-the-house rules under the AFDC program in the U.S., which ran for decades, up to the mid-90s. Essentially, families often couldn't get crucial benefits if an able-bodied man lived in the home.
Seriously, so having a father present meant losing support.
That was often the reality. It created this terrible incentive for fathers to leave or at least hide their presence just so their family could get basic assistance. Welfare officers would do surprise checks looking for men's shoes, toothbrushes. It was invasive.
That's perverse.
It is, and the book quotes, "When you pay a woman to reject the father of her child, the child inherits the cost." It also points to scholars like Thomas Sowell and Walter E. Williams, who've argued that Black family cohesion was actually stronger before those welfare systems expanded dramatically in the 60s.
Okay, welfare policies. What else?
Then there's mass incarceration. The book calls it one of the most potent tools in erasing fatherhood, especially in Black and African-descended communities. The war on drugs, over-policing, biased sentencing, disproportionately ripped Black men from their families, particularly in the U.S., and it notes how even things like not being able to pay child support may be due to unemployment, illness can lead to jail time, criminalizing poverty, basically, and making family breakdown worse.
Creating a cycle.
A devastating cycle. There's a statistic mentioned. Children of incarcerated fathers are 6 times more likely to end up in the justice system themselves. The author puts it starkly. The Black father is the most policed body on earth because he represents the threat of generational healing.
Wow. That's a powerful statement. And finally, the family courts.
Yes. The book points to pervasive biases within family court systems, too. It argues they frequently favor maternal custody and tend to reduce fathers mainly to financial providers. like we touched on earlier. It gives examples from different places. The UK, where advocacy groups say maybe only 1 in 10 non-resident dads get more than alternate weekends, shared care is still rare. The US, where 2023 data showed only about 17% of custodial parents are fathers, only about 18% get sole physical custody. Jamaica, where visitation might be granted on paper, but the book says it's often not actually enforced.
So the system itself creates barriers.
It can, yeah. The book cites specific cases, anonymized of course, but illustrating the pattern. Like a UK case, Red S, where a black father met all conditions but was denied contact for years because the mother claimed distress. An American case, Red Gwaine C, where a father lost custody partly due to unstable employment, even with family support, while the mother, who had a restraining order against her, was favored. Another UK case, Smith v. UK Family Court, where a father was denied court-ordered visitation for 3 years, basically because mother did not comply and she faced no penalty. The book argues this sends this consistent, troubling message. A father's love can be ignored, but his money cannot.
Okay, this systematic dismantling.
Hmm.
Slavery, colonialism, welfare, incarceration, courts, it's a lot. So what is the effect of all this on a child? The book talks about a deep psychological injury, calls it the father wound. What does that actually look like?
The father wound, yeah, it's a really central concept. The book defines it as this deep injury affecting biology, psychology, and spirit. It comes from abandonment, yes, but also inconsistency, neglect, or that systemic removal we just talked about through jail, courts, state intervention. This break, this rupture, can seriously impact a child's developing brain, especially areas like the orbitofrontal cortex, crucial for impulse control, empathy, managing emotions.
The co-regulation thing again?
Exactly. Dr. Tronick's work showed infants need that consistent co-regulation from adults for secure development. When that's disrupted, especially the father's input, a child's ability to handle emotional stuff can become unstable. And often they internalize the absence. They don't see it as circumstantial. They feel it's because they aren't worthy. It reflects on them. Dr. Warren Farrell puts it very concisely. Absent fathers are not just missing from homes. They are missing from the child's inner map of the world.
Missing from their inner map.
Mm.
That's powerful. How does this play out in terms of identity, especially for kids in the African diaspora?
It often creates this profound identity disruption. For Black boys, father absence can manifest as, well, heightened aggression sometimes. Deep confusion about who they are. They might search for surrogate father figures, sometimes ending up in gangs or looking up to older peers in unhealthy ways. Hypermasculinity can become like a shield, masking deep insecurity underneath.
And the statistics reflect this.
Sadly, yes. In the UK, Black boys without fathers are reportedly 3 times more likely to be kicked out of school permanently. In the US, data suggests over 85% of young people in prison come from father-absent homes. It's stark.
And for Black girls, is it different?
It's distinct, but just as damaging. Without that affirming voice from a father figure, many might seek validation elsewhere, often through unhealthy relationships. This can lead to issues with boundaries, maybe early pregnancies, emotional dependency. Dr. Joy DeGruy observes, when the father does not affirm her, the world becomes her mirror, and the world is often cruel.
So the father's affirmation is key for both sons and daughters, but in different ways.
Critically important for both. The book also talks about how the brain actually builds identity through the father's presence. His involvement can directly influence the dopamine reward system vital for motivation, pleasure, often through what the book calls achievement praise, affirming effort, courage.
The masculine feedback loop.
Right. When that's missing, kids might seek that dopamine hit elsewhere, sometimes through risky behaviors. Dr. Kyle Pruitt at Yale, his work basically concluded, father involvement is the stabilizing force in adolescent brain development.
You mentioned quantum psychology earlier, too. How does that fit with this idea of the unseen father?
Yeah, it's a fascinating layer. The book draws this parallel to quantum physics, where a particle state is kind of uncertain till it's observed. Similarly, it suggests a child's psychological identity might remain uncollapsed, unstable, without this sunlight gaze, the consistent seeing and affirmation of a father.
Quantum dissonance.
That's the term the author uses. It suggests this can lead to identity fragmentation, maybe gaps in memory about themselves, even epigenetic trauma. Epigenetic trauma basically means unprocessed emotional pain might alter how genes are expressed, suggesting the hurt of fatherlessness could potentially be passed down at a cellular level.
Inherited trauma.
Potentially, yes. The book mentions recent neuroquantum research, too. A Harvard mirror neuron lab study found a father's congruent facial mimicry, like mirroring expressions, boosts a child's gamma band coherence. Those are brainwaves linked to focus, learning. And other quantum biology research suggests the oxytocin bond in father-child interaction might even alter mitochondrial electron spin resonance, potentially improving cellular health.
Wow, that's getting technical, but the
The
point...
point is, the book argues there's a scientific basis emerging for the profound, energetic, even quantum-level impact of a father's presence. It's not just nice to have.
Okay, beyond the psychological, the book goes even deeper. Into the spiritual cost, ancestral disconnect.
Yeah.
That sounds incredibly profound.
It really is. In many African cosmologies, the father isn't just dad. He's seen as a spiritual portal, a conduit, transmitting lineage memory, the power held in names, cosmic authority. When that connection is broken, the child is essentially spiritually cut adrift, disinherited. There's a Bantu Congo saying mentioned, to know the father is to know your place in the ancestral chain. To not know him is to walk disinherited.
Walk disinherited. And other ancient traditions echo this.
Frequently. In Kemet, Asar, the father figure, represented legacy. His son, Heru, Horus, could only overcome chaos and find his destiny by spiritually connecting with his father's essence, his Ka. They had the opening of the mouth ceremony, often done by sons, believed to restore cosmic harmony, connect to ancestral spirit. A line from the Book of Coming Forth by Day is quoted, "Without my father's Ka, I am but a shadow." Ka being that vital life force, spiritual essence.
So the father provides that spiritual anchor.
Exactly. The Yoruba Ifa tradition teaches something similar. While kids have their own Ori, destiny, and Iwa, character, the father helps shape and actualize them, like a stake supporting a young tree. The proverb, "the tree without a stake will bend," captures it. Rituals like Obi Abada reinforce that need for guidance. The seed grows straight when the stake is firm. Discipline, spiritual guidance. And in Rastafari Alivity, the father is seen as reflecting divine law on earth, a priesthood role. Transmitting Jah's laws, affirming identity. A child without that is compared to a lion without its mane uncrowned.
Uncrowned.
Yeah. The book even mentions the Nabingi quantum chant, fathers drumming at 7.83 hertz, the Earth's natural frequency, the Schumann resonance while chanting Abakadamawe, Divine Father. This practice is apparently shown to induce alpha-theta brainwave states in children, believed to deepen bonding and spiritual connection.
So what happens when this spiritual connection is broken? The book calls it astral collapse.
Astral collapse, yes. It uses this symbolic language, father as the sun, clarity, direction, structure. Mother as the moon, nurturance, intuition, emotional safety. Without the sun, the book suggests, the child orbits in darkness. Psychic confusion, not fully knowing themselves, their direction, their worth. This often leads kids to seek validation externally, maybe from toxic sources. As one study cited puts it, you cannot orbit if your sun is missing, you just spin in darkness.
Spinning in darkness, that really paints a picture.
It does. And the spiritual disinheritance, the book argues, contributes massively to losing ancestral memory, which can lead to that existential depression, rootlessness, nihilism we sometimes see in youth.
And the epigenetic trauma fits in here too.
Right. Science is increasingly showing trauma can be inherited. Emotional wounds, shame, fear, anger from absent or dishonored fathers might influence gene expression, stress responses in future generations. The pain literally passed down. And then there's phantom father syndrome, kids forming imagined relationships, projecting the father role onto others because the real one is missing. This can lead to cycles of rage, betrayal, or maybe blind loyalty to surrogates, perpetuating unhealthy patterns. Dr. Wade Noble summed it up powerfully. To program a child against their father is to program them against half their own soul. Underscores that deep spiritual and psychological cost.
Okay, shifting gears slightly. We've talked a lot about the pain, the wounds,
Yeah.
but the book also connects fatherhood directly to success, potential realized.
Yes, absolutely. It presents really compelling evidence on this. The measurable impact is clear. Children with actively involved fathers, consistently more likely to graduate, develop leadership skills, delay risky behaviors, earn higher incomes later in life. And this holds true even when you control for things like socioeconomic status.
So it's not just about money in the house now.
Definitely not. A U.S. Department of Education report found students with involved dads were 43% more likely to get good grades, 33% less likely to repeat a grade. Harvard studies consistently link involved fathers to better emotional regulation in kids, clearer goals, more self-confidence, especially for boys. And globally, UNICEF finds strong links between father absence and lower literacy, higher dropout rates in sub-Saharan Africa. Dr. Umar Johnson's quote fits here. Success is not accidental. It is a ritual, often led by the father.
What about the specific realities across the diaspora? The book details those too.
It does, and the picture is consistent. UK, nearly 70% of Black Caribbean boys from father-absent homes underperform on exams, 3 times more likely to be excluded from school. Jamaica. Father absence is a top predictor for youth incarceration, teen pregnancy. Over 60% reportedly res without consistent paternal presence. Parts of Africa. Migration for work removes fathers. South African boys without dads are 6 times more likely to drop out early. U.S. Black children in fatherless homes are 4 times more likely to live in poverty, 9 times more likely to drop out, 5 times more likely to die by suicide, and make up 70% of youth in long-term detention.
Those numbers are staggering.
They really are. And the book stresses, again, this isn't inherent pathology. It stems from histories, policies, systems that systematically disrupt fatherhood.
Beyond outcomes, what about the how? The book mentions father energy and a blueprint for drive. What's that about?
It's about the unique psychological structuring a father's presence provides. He's often the first model for things like calculated risk-taking, perseverance, thinking long-term, embodying linear time connecting cause and effect, effort, and reward. Through his presence, his actions, he teaches delayed gratification, consistency over mood swings, discipline over impulse, courage.
Dr. Joanza Kunjufu is quoted, "The father is not just a paycheck. He is the embodiment of rhythm, direction, and accountability." It's that modeling.
Okay, now let's bring in culture again, especially media. How does that play into all this? The book calls it pop culture poison. That's a strong term.
It is strong. Pop culture poison is how the book describes the argument that entertainment media isn't neutral. It actively shapes our beliefs. The entertainment industry, music, TV, movies, digital stuff, has, the book claims, consistently warped how we see fatherhood, especially within the Black and African diaspora. It talks about entertainment being weaponized, constantly showing fathers, especially Black fathers, as, incompetent, angry, missing, irrelevant.
The stereotypes we talked about earlier, it's exactly amplified. Dr. Amos Wilson's warning is cited. Who controls the image controls the mind. Who controls the mind controls the future. So, degrading fatherhood in entertainment. The book argues it's not accidental, it's ideological. Subtly priming us to normalize father absence, maybe see maternal autonomy as superior, which, it argues, fragments the community.
Can you give some examples from the book?
Sure. Think about hip-hop's evolution. Early artists, KRS-One, Public Enemy, often affirmed family, cultural memory, masculinity as protective, wise. But by the mid-90s, the book argues corporate influence shifted things. Conscious rap got sidelined by hyper-commercial stuff that often glorified fatherless survival, materialism. It mentions Tupac's Dear Mama. Emotionally powerful, yes, but the book suggests it subtly reinforces the idea that fathers often leave, and surviving without them is like a celebrated norm. Professor Griff from Public Enemy is quoted saying, "Rap was hijacked by corporations who knew fatherlessness equals profit."
What about other genres or media?
It points to what it calls the independent woman myth, popularized by songs like Beyoncé's Independent Woman. While promoting self-sufficiency, the framing, the book argues, can imply relationships, especially with men, are liabilities. Lyrics about buying your own house, car.
Right, I depend on me.
Exactly.
Right.
Which sounds empowering, but the book suggests it might inadvertently isolate women and kids from essential masculine love, leadership, especially in communities where kinship has always been vital.
And reality TV.
Reality TV gets called out too. Shows like Love and Hip Hop, Basketball Wives, cited as normalizing broken families, glamorizing emotional drama. Fathers, if they're there, often shown as unfaithful, disposable. Women sometimes praised for cutting fathers off, often with audience applause. The book says this subconsciously trains viewers to expect dysfunction, see father absence as normal. Then there's the sitcom father trope. Everybody hates Chris, Blackish. Dads often shown as confused, ineffective, emotionally distant, a huge contrast to those ancestral roles of griot, healer.
Social media plays a role too, I imagine.
Definitely. The book mentions viral content mocking baby daddies, turning daddy issues into jokes, punchlines. Instead of seeing them as urgent calls for healing, this distorts the narrative, can make kids internalize shame or anger about their own father situation. Media psychology studies are mentioned, suggesting kids might get over 20,000 negative messages about fatherhood by age 18, wiring their brains for detachment or hostility. Dr. Wade Nobles again. To program a child against their father is to program them against half their own soul.
Are there positive portrayals mentioned? counterexamples?
Yes, thankfully. Films like The Pursuit of Happiness, King Richard Fences are highlighted as vital counter-narratives. But the book suggests they're rare compared to the negative ones like Precious or Waiting to Exhale. However, it also points to strong countercultural examples like Rastafari music, Bob Marley, Peter Tosh consistently honoring the Divine Father, Abba Kedamari, offering a blueprint for restoration through songs about resistance, healing, fatherhood.
So how do we combat this poison?
The book suggests detoxing the mind through media literacy, understanding the messages we consume, cultural reclamation, actively seeking out positive, healthy images, supporting independent media. It even suggests intentional practices like 40-day spiritual fasts from toxic media to kind of recalibrate and reconnect.
Okay. So given all these challenges, systemic, cultural, patient, how does the book advise navigating relationships that end, but where kids are involved? It makes this really important distinction between conscious co-parenting and soul poisoning. What is soul poisoning?
Soul poisoning, it's another potent term. It refers to when kids are basically forced to ingest the unresolved pain, the hostility, the resentment between their parents. They end up being messengers, spies, pawns, instead of just being kids who need nurturing. The book states, you are not just breaking up with your ex, you are shaping how your child sees love, self-worth, and family. This poisoning isn't always obvious abuse. It can be subtle control, sarcasm, weaponized silence. It makes kids question their own worth, maybe become manipulative themselves, or just shut down their feelings to keep the peace.
What are some common patterns of this?
The book outlines a few destructive patterns. One is parental alienation, deliberately turning a child against the other parent. False claims, constant bad-mouthing. This can cause serious long-term harm, even raise suicide risk for the child. Another is emotional triangulation, using the child as a mediator, forcing them to carry adult emotional burdens. Leads to anxiety, guilt, confusion, and then control parenting, using legal or financial power to manipulate the other parent, with the child basically as collateral damage.
The psychological toll must be immense.
Huge. Identity distortion, anxiety, guilt, problems in their own future relationships. A UK study has cited kids in high-conflict co-parenting situations had 45% higher depression rates, 60% higher chance of self-harm by age 15. These aren't just emotional wounds, the book stresses. They're described as spiritual fractures, affecting the child's core being.
Do the spiritual traditions offer guidance here?
Yes, many African spiritual systems emphasize that balance between mother and father. In Kemet, a child's soul was judged partly by the harmony between parents. Disrespect between them messed with Ma'at, cosmic order. A Yoruba proverb says, if mother and father have no peace, the child has no blessing. Parental unity is key for the child's well-being. Rastafari Livity sees kids as sacred gifts, not bargaining chips. Jah does not give children to enemies. It urges spiritual unity even after separation through things like an Edel family council.
So how do we avoid soul poisoning? What does conscious co-parenting look like?
The book lays out principles like honor before ego, seeing the sacred reflection of yourself in the other parent for the child's sake, transparency and trust, clear, consistent communication, shared rituals showing up together for the child's big moments, no bad-mouthing because those angry words wound the child's identity, and consult the child, but do not use them. Respect their voice, don't burden them. It acknowledges courts often fuel conflict. Media glorifies dysfunction, making conscious choices even more crucial. It even advises on how to speak truth with dignity if one parent is harmful, protecting the child while preserving hope. And for healing, it suggests ceremonies. The co-parent covenant, the fire letter ritual, a forgiveness ceremony, aimed at closure and reestablishing that spiritual protection over the child.
Okay. After looking at all these deep challenges, painful histories, where do we go? The book offers a blueprint for rebuilding, right?
Yes, this is where it shifts really powerfully from critique to restoration, hope. It starts by addressing the hidden reasons fathers disappear, going beyond that simplistic deadbeat dad label. It emphasizes absence isn't always just irresponsibility. Often it's a result of systemic injustice, biased courts, jail, immigration issues, crippling financial problems. Many fathers, it argues, get pushed out, punished, silenced by structural forces, given impossible choices. Comply with unfairness or lose your kids.
And emotional factors.
Definitely. Emotional injuries. Many dads, the book notes, didn't have their own fathers present, never learned how to handle emotions, ask for help. They carry unresolved grief, shame, confusion. Bleeding without language, as the book puts it. And shame, depression can lead men to retreat, especially if they keep hitting walls trying to reconnect, feeling powerless. The book states, men don't vanish, they get erased, or they bleed in silence.
So what are the steps to rebuild?
It outlines concrete steps towards sacred rebuilding. First, Heal the inner boy. Acknowledge your own pain. Maybe journaling. What did I need to hear from my father? Therapy, support groups. Father yourself first. Second, apologize, even if not at fault. Humility opens doors. Saying, I'm sorry, validates the child's pain, even if you feel systemic issues were more to blame. Third, be consistent, not perfect. Kids need reliability most. Small, regular things, text, calls, showing up for school stuff, build trust steadily, show up even when the system is frustrating, maintain stability. Fourth, learn the new language of presence. Modern fatherhood needs vulnerability, asking real questions. Physical affection, speaking affirmations clearly. I see you, I'm proud of you, I love you. Telling them who they are, where they come from.
And it brings back those archetypes.
Yes, the divine blueprint of fatherhood. Those 4 archetypes from African cosmology. The priest, leading prayer, teaching sacred law, bridging to ancestors. The protector, safeguarding physically, emotionally, spiritually. The provider, not just money, but wisdom, direction, cultural memory. And the prophet, speaking vision, naming gifts, guiding destiny.
How does rebuilding look different for sons versus daughters?
Unique approaches. Sons need to be seen, tested, blessed, taught strength with humility. Rites of passage, fasts, vision quests can ground them. Daughters need affirmation in their beauty, voice, boundaries. Learning from dad how a man should treat a woman helps them set healthy boundaries. Expect honor later. A present father shapes a child's core beliefs about their own worth. Hugely important for both.
Are there examples of this rebuilding happening, programs?
Yes, the book highlights global models of redemptive fatherhood, showing it's not just theory. Men Care Plus in South Africa, emotional literacy, active fathering training. Dads Unlimited in the UK, mental health legal aid. Fathers Uplift in Boston, support for incarcerated dads reentering. Pan-African rites of passage programs actively reintroducing boys to sacred responsibility, community identity. The message is, when the community fathers, the children thrive.
What about institutions, schools, courts, communities?
Institutional change is key too. Schools establishing father centers for engagement, father and me healing events. Courts needing education on cultural fatherhood, fair custody reviews, penalizing those who block visitation and harm kids. Churches, mosques teaching spiritual fatherhood, holding rites that honor fathers as priests, visionaries. And the book provides practical tools. The 7x7 Rebuild Plan. Fatherhood Circle, monthly meetups for accountability, growth, using cultural texts, shared wisdom. It's a really comprehensive roadmap.
This deep dive really makes it clear. This isn't just about individual families. It's presented as something much bigger. A global movement almost.
Absolutely. The book lifts fatherhood up to a national assignment, draws parallels to those ancient civilizations, Kemet, Great Zimbabwe, Ashanti, Zulu, where fathers were builders of institutions, guardians of spiritual law, stewards of legacy. Every bedtime story, every lesson in humility, every tear wiped away, framed as an act of revolution, building future leaders, shaping culture. In Rastafari Livity, the father is king authority, from aligning with truth, purpose, service.
And that quantum fatherhood idea comes back here.
It does. The book argues modern science is catching up to ancient wisdom. Fatherhood is energetic, not just biological. Like quantum entanglement particles connected across distance, a child carries the father's energetic signature. His voice, silence, choices, wounds, vision, even when apart. Epigenetics supports this too. Trauma can pass down, but so can healing, meaning a single act of reconciliation, forgiveness, or conscious parenting can change not only one life, but a lineage.
Wow, so being a father is transmitting destiny.
That's how it's presented. A transmitter of destiny. One aligned thought, one whispered affirmation can start rewriting ancestral pain into a generational blessing. It's profound.
And you said earlier, the book presents evidence this return is actually happening now.
That's right. It points to this discernible renaissance of conscious fatherhood, happening globally, often under the radar. Ethiopia. Rastafari communities holding Nyabingi ceremonies, anointing new fathers, ensuring sacred transmission. Ghana. Powerful rites of passage programs, reconnecting boys to grandfather legacy, heritage. Jamaica. Fatherhood circles blending biblical and African wisdom, healing chants. Creating vital support spaces. UK, USA. Thousands of Black fathers reclaiming full custody, homeschooling, launching podcasts, retreats, spiritual businesses focused on fatherhood.
So these aren't just isolated acts.
The book portrays them as prophetic, signaling a return to cosmic balance. It affirms, when the father stands in alignment, the family becomes an altar, and the child, a priest of destiny.
So, bringing it back to the listener, what does this all mean for you, for your family, your community? What's the real-world impact?
The ripple effect. That's what the book emphasizes heavily. When one father heals, it's not isolated. The whole village, metaphorically, starts transforming. You see better marriages, partnerships, more emotional maturity, communication. Kids often do better in school, stronger self-worth, feeling safer. Communities might see less violence, boys modeling gentleness, integrity instead of chaos. Mothers feel more supported, not abandoned. Co-parenting becomes a shared blessing. And crucially, ancestral pride gets restored. Lineages broken by history start reconnecting through names, prayers, purpose. The home's vibration lifts, from survival struggle to sanctuary.
Does it offer specific tools for fathers wanting to step into this?
Yes, actionable tools for fathers of the new earth. It encourages a daily father's prayer, even gives an affirmation. I am a portal of legacy. I lead with love. I father with fire and forgiveness. It provides the father's bookless essential reading from Subonfu Somé, Akil, David Derrida, Ra Nefer Amen, Father's Uplift Curriculum. It mentions the father's drum, symbolic or real, representing rhythm, presence, vibration, bonding, ancestral memory. And the father's circle, that vital space, virtual or real, for monthly reflection, accountability, growth, rituals, stories, support.
And how does the book conclude?
With a powerful letter to the fathers, a message of hope and responsibility. To the broken father, you are not a failure, you are in process. To the absent father, your return can still mean everything. Start where you are. To the present but tired father, thank you, breathe, ask for help. To the future father, prepare now, heal your wounds, learn your history. To the divine father, walk in your royalty. The ancestors are listening.
And for the child without a father?
It offers solace, know this. The Most High is still father to the fatherless. You are still loved, still chosen, still powerful. The book's ultimate reflection is, fatherhood is not merely human, it is a spiritual technology. It holds the potential to rewire identity, restore community, and resurrect culture. And it leaves us with this beautiful image. Every time a father shows up, a curse is broken. Every time a father holds his child in love, the Most High smiles and the ancestors dance. That's the sacred call. Heal, rebuild, father not just children, but nations.
Wow. So what does all of this mean for you listening right now, this deep dive into best interest?
Yeah.
It really does feel like just the start of something huge.
It really does, and we hope you don't just listen, but really engage with this knowledge. That title, Best Interest, as we've explored, the author presents it as way more than a legal term. It's like a spiritual commandment for our times. We definitely encourage you to look for this book when it comes out, dig deeper into these ideas, and think about how you might become part of this transformative change in your own life, your community.
Yeah, definitely seek it out.
Because this return of the Sacred Father, it's presented as more than just a social trend. It's argued to be this global redemption movement, vital for rebalancing everything, families, communities, nations. So maybe the final thought to leave you with is this. Consider, in your own life, in your community, what single act of paternal restoration, whether it's personal or communal, what single act could start to rewire a generation?
A powerful question, and one that really underlines the profound importance of this work for healing now and for all the generations to come.
Searching for a voice that never came. Boys get loud, fists go flying, girls get quiet, inside they crying. We dress up pain in jokes and gold, but deep inside the wounds stay cold. He ain't gone, he was pushed, a system built to crush and hush. He ain't weak, he was bruised, but the child still wait confused. Heart still ache, clock still tick, name still echo in the soul so slick. Daddy, where you be? You left me to get ancestors long since gone. My voice shit pain from the family tree. Say you come from royalty, not the breed. My daughter know your worth is high. You now need no fake man life. My son, me teach you how to cry and how to fight without war in your eye. Family court, you can't erase my blood. I belong tears, I rise from mud. System broke me but couldn't end me. The divine contract stand, defend me. Fathers unite, make law bend. Tell school and church represent again. It start with presence, not perfection. We rise in fire, love and correction. You ain't too late, you ain't too lost. Pick up the staff, count the cost. The throne is waiting, the future's calling. Stand up, oh Father, no more falling. You ain't your wound, you ain't your shame. Rise up, son, king, reclaim your name. A child with a father is a seed with light. Let's rebuild the world tonight. My father now myth, in memory and flame. I carry his fire, I chant his name. Children of stars, children of kings, we rise on